Arcane Season 2, I have to say, it's as progressive a show as Hollywood could make. But we'll see how fans receive it, especially as it arrives on what is now the start of Trump 2.0. Like, I don't see how you could have a problem with She-Hulk and the Acolyte and Agatha all along, but yet be okay with this. I mean, is the style really that big of a difference? I mean, to me, they all seem like they're cut from the same cloth. And I liked a lot of that content, and I like this show.
What you just watched is a clip from Grace Randolph of Beyond the Trailers review of Arcane Season 2, and it really got a response out of her followers, and it got a response out of me too. So basically what Grace Randolph is saying, she's reviewing the show Arcane. It's on its second season right now. I've watched the first 3 episodes. I'm not planning to review it until the full season is out. And she was talking about the fact that this is a very female-centric action show. It's a video game adaptation. Even if you look at the poster of the show, the main poster shows the 4 female characters that the season focuses on. This has always been a very female-centric show from the beginning, honestly, but apparently, even as it goes on, there's just more and more of an emphasis put on these female main characters and less emphasis on the male characters. And that was kind of a starting point for Grace Randolph to say, like, and also in the show, there, as at one point in the first 3 episodes, is a character who is apparently trans. There's some gay characters in the show who are the main, 2 of the main characters. And this is Grace Randolph saying that she doesn't understand why, if a person had a problem with She-Hulk or the Acolyte, why they wouldn't have a problem with Arcane, which is the #1 show on Netflix right now as of this recording. And here's the thing about Grace Randolph. I've watched her for a while because she has very surprisingly good box office and business analysis, and it's really interesting to listen to, and she's dead on with a lot of it. But the reason why that's surprising is a lot of times I listen to her reviews and I can't really understand where she's coming from. And with this, for a while now, she's been really trying to understand where the whole culture war mess comes into play from a business perspective of movies and TV and all of that sort of thing. And she's been trying to be fair and understand all of that and understand people with different beliefs coming into arguments over these shows. But here's the problem with her comparing Arcane to She-Hulk and the Acolyte, 3 shows with apparently progressive themes that 2 of them get a ton of hate and the other one does not. Grace doesn't understand that from the beginning, for many people, the problem has never been progressive themes. The problem is writing. And I would say it is writing even in terms if you disagree outright with the progressive themes of this stuff in general. And let me explain that. Now, She-Hulk, is it a good show in any way, shape, or form? No, it's pretty cringe. It has a protagonist who is very, very narcissistic. There's not anything really sympathetic about her. The speech that she gives to the Hulk, which is oftentimes picked apart, and her saying, comparing his experiences are less than hers as a woman, controlling her anger. The reason why that gets a lot of ridicule is that, it is bad to have to deal with any man who's supposedly misogynistic or actually misogynistic in the workplace, which is what she's using it, or catcalling. That's annoying, right? But those kinds of experiences are incompatible to the experiences that we know Bruce Banner is canonically supposed to deal with, having a rage monster inside of him, killing people. In the comics, his backstory that reveals that the Hulk is a manifestation of his suppressed rage from being abused as a child. These things just cannot be compared to, and I don't think that the writers of the show had any self-awareness for that. So, the She-Hulk speech, where Hulk is kind of submissive, agreeing with her that her experiences generally as a woman dealing with general sexism are greater than his, greater in terms of her having to deal with her anger over it, was just laughed off the face of the planet. And I would say that that is very bad for someone trying to come from a feminist perspective, trying to push and trying to convince people of their point of view, because that kind of framing of it, that kind of framing of feminism or any kind of struggles for women, that just made it look really petty and really self-absorbed and really narcissistic. And it is not a good way to push your beliefs. It is not a good way to convince people. It just makes people cringe and laugh at you. And other than that, She-Hulk, not a great show. Not funny. By the end of it, they literally had a retcon to admit that they didn't know how to end it. bad show. Acolyte, I was thinking in preparation for this video, just the crazy writing in that show, from the episode that reveals that the witches that live on this planet are all killed, basically, because someone forces them out of someone else's brain. They just all up and die. The fact that they abuse their own children, yet are made into the sympathetic ones. The fact that this character killing her own father is supposed to be made into a cathartic choice that we're supposed to enjoy this character for. It's bad writing. Now let's compare it to Arcane. It's a show about two sisters, very three-dimensional characters, about the one sister betrays the other one for very, very understandable reasons that she's going to regret for the rest of her life. A rift comes between them. One character ends up on one side of a brewing war that is coming out, and just generally, it's very well-developed characters, very human characters, and they're on a very, very intense journey. Now, what is the difference between these shows that I'm comparing? One is well-written and the other one isn't. Because here's the thing about politics and progressive politics is that it doesn't matter what your politics are or the themes of your show or the beliefs that you have. Anything is going to be influenced by someone's beliefs. It's how you present them. So a show like She-Hulk just invited a lot of cringe and ridicule for it because of how its character was written. However, a show like Arcane, the female characters are very well drawn, so they feel like actual characters. They're given nuances, they're given depth. A character like Vi, who is the co-lead of the show, she's a very masculine female character. Maybe she'd be one that you would think that people would come after and criticize, but she is made into a complicated female character because we see that she has flaws. She did let down her sister, maybe for understandable reasons, but she did create that failure. There's a lot of things that she does wrong throughout the series, even as we see that there are things to root about her as well. And Jinx, completely messed up character, not strong at all, but we feel sympathy for her because of how she was orphaned as a child, how she has gone through so much torture throughout her life, how much self-hatred she has. So we sympathize her regardless of the things that she does. And this is just the differences between the show, that one is well done, one is not. Could you say that Arcane is a feminist show? Perhaps in a way, because it's allowing female characters to be written as complicated and as strong or weak as male characters are. Now, here's just going back to what I explained in my Hollywood's Continuous Problem with Female Characters video, is that the true inequality I think that there is in writing is that Hollywood really doesn't understand how to do female characters a lot of the time. There was a time in the past where female characters a lot of the time were just regulated to one-dimensional love interests and stuff. And now that we have had a really big push for strong female characters, they become one-dimensional masculine characters and things like that, and characters who weren't allowed to have flaws. And that's wrong too, because I said that the real inequality is male characters aren't put under such scrutiny about how they're going to be portrayed. They just are portrayed in however way a writer wants, while female characters are put under scrutiny, meaning they can't be as layered, they can't be as flawed, and writers in Hollywood still don't get it right. And so you could say that Arcane, just allowing female characters to be complicated and human and well-developed, is a feminist show in that regard. And the difference there between the feminism here and in Arcane and in She-Hulk is one is well done and the other one isn't. But here's the real thing. It's always, like I said, regardless of the politics or the themes of a show. Because here's what your goal is as a storyteller. Your goal is that your viewer has an experience, that all of the world building that you've done, all the character work that you've done is going to be so believable on a level and so unraveling on a level that your audience member isn't even thinking the fact that they're watching a show. They don't even feel like that. They're just experiencing things with the characters kind of as if they're happening in real life. Not to the point where it actually hurts as it would in real life. We can experience these stories from a safe distance, but on a certain level, they just feel everything that's happening. And when female characters are well drawn and human, then it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Then they're just relatable because they're human beings. And you're not thinking about their gender. You're just thinking about the experience that they're having because you're experiencing that too, because the characters are well drawn enough so that you have empathy. And listen, there There have been shows with conservative themes, religious themes, non-religious themes, liberal themes, Marxist themes, any kind of ideology that you want to think of that has existed throughout history. Lord of the Rings is a very, very deeply religious story as written by its Catholic author, but it is enjoyed by atheists throughout the world. Star Trek had very liberal progressive themes, enjoyed by a ton of conservatives. It really doesn't matter what your viewpoint is coming through. And I also disagree because as people are trying to explain where the sort of argument over politics and shows, oftentimes they'll say that a good story doesn't tell you what to think. It lets you think for yourself. I don't agree with that because there's been things like Dark Knight Returns having a caricature of Ronald Reagan in it. Like, you clearly can tell in a lot of media how the author wants you to think. And sometimes they're not subtle about their politics, but for a good writer who actually can make an experience out of a show because of how, or a comic book or whatever it is, because of how well they are at writing all of these details that make you just feel immersed into it, it's still going to feel like an experience and you're going to get something out of that. And as things are happening to the characters that maybe want you to believe a certain way, you're just going to feel as an experience and react to it as you were if you saw something objectively happen in real life and inherently make your own assessment of it. Maybe the author does want you to believe something, but you're still going to feel like you can make your own assessment of it because you're experiencing it as if you were just watching something play out in real life. Bad writers, however, they can't really draw the characters well. They can't invest you in a story. They can't work on all this world building. They don't dissolve everything so that it feels like you're just having an experience. But if they have a message that they really want to tell you, then it's likely just going to be hammered home, and it's likely going to feel like the only thing a show is giving you. And that's the real difference between good writing when it comes to politics or progressive worldview versus bad writing. There's been progressive politics in these shows for a very, very long time. The difference is if they're done well or if they're done badly. That's all. And I'll also tell you something. This is an important thing to remember, that if a show is giving somebody something like entertainment, then oftentimes people don't care if they vehemently disagree with some of the politics in something because they're being entertained by that thing. They're getting something out of it, so they don't care if there's something in there that they vehemently disagree with, which is another difference between Arcane and these shows like She-Hulk and Acolyte. Entertainment is very seductive. It's like candy, sugar, alcohol. It's giving you a good feeling if it's entertaining, so you don't care if something maybe goes against your beliefs. And that is a true thing that people have been able to assess, that it is a good way to influence people because they're allowed to see these other experiences. They're getting something that they enjoy out of it while this other messaging is in it. However, what people misunderstand is that it must be well done, because if you're not giving somebody an experience or entertainment in any level, then the message that they're trying to sell isn't going to work either. And that's the real difference. And Grace Randolph, I think that she doesn't understand that. It's like her saying that just like oftentimes they'll put a female character in a show that's made for men just so there'll be some female representation and some female audience brought over. She's saying that you should bring a male character over in things made for women so that can bring the male audience over for that. There might be some truth to that, but ultimately, like I was saying earlier on, if the male characters or female characters are well written, then it doesn't matter their gender. They're just relatable to the audience and you're just watching the experience that they're having. So it's not the most important thing. And that's why no one is complaining that Arcane has 4 female leads and that it's an action-oriented show and the poster only has those 4 female leads, because the female characters are relatable. So it doesn't matter. It's not good because they're female. It's not bad because they're female. They're just people who you can relate to and be entertained by that story. And that is the difference that Grace Randolph does not understand. But I wish that more people would understand this, because movies and shows, books, comics, they will always have politics in them, but they're just about if the writer can dissolve those politics into the story and create an immersive experience. And if you do that, then you actually do have more of a hold over people. And if they're going to be influenced by their story, then rather if you just cannot create any interesting characters, any interesting scenarios, cannot create an experience, and are just giving people a sermon. You're not going to convince people that way, and people aren't going to be entertained by that, and they're not going to listen to you that way. But that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you, patrons, as always, for supporting this channel. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.